Hello students, today our main topic is Python Pandas Dataframe, and this lecture we are going to discuss about pivoting. And as you know that pivoting is applied basically pivot function and pivot underscore table function. So we will discuss both of them in this video, and later on we will discuss LOC and ILOC attribute in this video also. Student, as you know that this is the revision part of your syllabus, and we already covered all the main topics related to your syllabus in the previous lecture or videos. So in this lecture our main focus is to discuss the main concept related to your syllabus, which is the part of the term and examination, and which are very important as far as your project or practical file is concerned. So this is not the part of your term and examination pivoting, it is a deleted portion, but when you just try to make a project, then this function help you a lot. So I think that you have unless and until um, you don't have a good knowledge of pivoting function, you are not able to make a project on Python Pandas. So let's start.
Arrange the data from rows and columns, and by possibly aggregating data from multiple sources in a report form with rows transferred to the columns so that the data can be viewed in a difference perspective. So pivoting means we can say that summarizing the data in a way to make understanding of descriptive data easier. And as you know that pivoting technique rearranges the data from rows and columns by possibly aggregating data from multiple sources in a report form. Okay, in a report form. That means with rows transferred to columns so that data can be viewed in different perspective. And there are two different methods for pivoting. These are the pivot function and pivot underscore table functions. These are the two different functions or methods by which we can use pivoting in data frames. So basically summarize what is the main objective of the pivoting. Basically we are summarizing the data in such a way to make understanding of descriptive data easier. Okay, next is pivoting with pivot if there are multiple entries for a column. Of that there are two different functions, both are used for the same purpose, but there is a little bit difference between pivot and pivot underscore table function. With pivot function, if there are multiple entries for a column value for the same value of the index row, it leads to error. But in pivot underscore table function it is not so. So that is the basic difference between pivot and pivot underscore table function. Hence before you use pivot function, you should ensure that the data does not have rows with duplicate values for the specified columns. If data have duplicate values, if data does not have rows with duplicate values for the specified columns, only then you can use pivot function, otherwise it will raise an error. Next is a pivot underscore table. It is also for a pivoting function which is like a pivot function and also produces a pivoted table, but it is different from the pivot function in a following way, and these are three different functions. It does not raise an error for multiple entries of a rows and columns representation combination. Second, it aggregates the multiple entries present of a row column combination. You need to specify what type of aggregation you want. These may be sum function, or this may be mean function. These are the aggregate functions. So we can say that pivot and pivot table functions are different in two ways. First of all, there is no duplication values along rows are allowed in pivot functions. If we can use pivot function for that type of data frame, then it will raise an error. But in pivot underscore table, it will not produce an error in that case. And second thing is, we always use aggregate function. In pivot function there is no aggregate function used, but in pivot underscore table there is an aggregate function, and that aggregate function may be a sum or mean. Okay, so this is the basic difference between pivot and pivot underscore table function, and both are used for the same purpose, pivoting of a table, but summarizing the data, or we can say that summarizing the data, but they can summarize the data in two different conditions, where a pivot function raise an error for multiple entries in a row, then pivot underscore table does not raise an error for multiple entries of a row, and there is a use of aggregate function when we use pivot underscore table function. So that is the basic difference between pivot and pivot table function. Next, there is an example here. You can easily see that using this example, we can easily understand what is the difference between pivot and pivot table function. Import pandas as PD. So first of all, pandas should be imported, and here as PD is the alternative name given to pandas. So whenever we want to use a pandas as a library, just write PD in place of pandas. After that, put dot operator, and after that we can use a method. In such case, method may be a data frame, as you see in line number 4. So data frame is a method which create a data frame. Okay, so you can easily see that these are the comment. So these are not executed at all, and comment always start with hash sign. So df pd dot data frame name Arab, Tamanna and Suraj. So there are 3 names here. As we know that this is a dictionary, and so we create a data frame using a dictionary here. So it is a key, and these are the values regarding to that keys. So as we know that key, when we create a data frame using key value combination, then key will be the name, key will be the name of the column, and in this case it is name of the column is name, and Arab, Tamanna and Suraj are the different data values for that purpose, for that. So Arab, Tamanna and Suraj. And then second is qualification. So second column name is qualification, and for that there are 3 different values: master, graduate and graduate. And third column name is age, and again there are 3 different values: 27, 23 and 21. And then there is a print statement, data frame is, and print df is there. So it will create a data frame. Let us see the output first, and it will give you a clear-cut idea about how data frame will be printed. Now you can see that if we execute just this part of the program, then program look like this. Data frame is, and you can easily see that name, qualification and age are the 3 different column names, and these are the different values regarding to age, name and masters. But remember that one more important thing here, that we insert data in a form of data after that qualification and age, but in this we can easily see that order is changed here. First of all, first column is age, then second column is name, and then third column is qualification. But when we declare the data in a data frame, then first column is name, second is qualification and third is age. It is because in dictionary there is always a key value combination, so it is not in order, it is always unordered. It means they can be arranged in different form. Even if you just run this program in your computer, it may be possible that at first position qualification is there, at second position name or age will be there, and third position again whatever will be the third column will remain, that will be at this location. So always remember that when you print a data frame using a dictionary, then order doesn't matter, and this is the data. Again, now you can easily see that along any row there is no duplication of data at all. Okay, so this is the simplest data frame here. Now let us go back to our program again, and let us see what is going on there. Now there is a second line. So here till this part a simple data frame will be printed, and next you can easily see here value can be an object or a list. So now first method to print a data frame using pivot function. Okay, this message will be printed as it is, and /n refers to the next line, and then we can easily see that a1 df dot pivot name, qualification and age. Okay, and then print a1. So data frame will be printed according to that pivot function, and then value in a list. Print second method to print data frame using pivot function is that a2 is equal to df dot pivot index name, column, qualification and value age. So there are 2 different print statement here. One is using without parameters values given here, index, columns and value, and second is with parameter value, index, columns and values. So by default, first is called first column, first values parameter value is considered as index, second is name considered as columns, and third is considered as values. If you cannot define, it is considered automatically or by default. So here there is a declaration of a data frame using pivot function where index, columns and values are given explicitly, but here you can easily see that for in first data frame A1 you can easily see that name, qualification is given here, where name is considered to be as a index values, qualification is considered to be a name, and age is considered to be a column. So let us check it. What is the output after that? You can easily see that name, here name, so all names are at basically are different index values, and then you can see that the qualification is the name of the columns, qualification is graduate and masters, and values are age, so different values are there, you can easily see that. And if value is not found for that, then NaN will be there, not a number will be printed for that. You can easily see that it means at that location no value will be found. Okay, so that is the output of second data frame, means A2. Now this is again third, so you can see that second and third are both are the same, and there is only difference between second and third, and difference in terms of the parameters value. In third we give the different parameters value, parameters as declare different parameters as index, columns and values, but in second we don't declare different parameters here. So by default first value is considered to be the index value, second is to be considered as a column value, and third is considered to be the values for that data frames. So you can easily see that the output of second and third are same here. So this is a pivoting, use of pivoting function in a data frame. Okay, next so one thing should always be remembered in case of pivot and pivot table function. With pivot function or method, if there are multiple entries for a column value for the same value for index or rows, it leads to error. Hence, before you use pivot function or method, you should ensure that the data does not have rows with duplicate values for the specified columns. Okay, now let us see again the program. Here we just okay, now first data frame will be printed here. As you see here, this is already done, this is already done, and A1 and A2 is already done here. Now third part. Now let us see it. DF1 is again data frame, and you can see that we here we declared this is another program, and in this program you can easily see that there are different duplicate values are here. PG data frame, again data frame will be created using dictionary here, and as you can see here for name there are multiple values, are repeated 2 times, are basically two values are same, you can easily see here. And also for the qualifications, masters and graduates, so again duplication of values are there. And age, you can easily see that there is no duplication at all. So there are some duplicate values in the data frame here. So second data frame which cannot be pivot, so this data frame which cannot be pivot, basically print df. So if you want to print df, then because of the duplication value, because of duplicate values here, this data frame cannot be data frame cannot be printed using pivot functions. So first of all, print this data frame. After that, we can easily see that if we want to print this data frame using pivot function and name, qualification and age, then name is the index value, as you know that, qualification is the column and age is the value for that data frame. here. So it will raise an error because of the duplicate values are there in a row. And as we know that if there are multiple entries for a column value for the same value of index, then it leads to an error. So it leads to an error because there are duplicate values. You can easily see here. Wait a minute. You can easily see that these are the duplicate values, and because of these duplicate values, when we just print this data frame using pivot function, then name is the index, and there are same values found for two different columns, so there is an error. You can easily see that if we want to print that statement, then there should be an error raised values for that index and column combination for multiple values. So this type of error will be there. Now I think the concept of pivot function is clear to all of you. So if there are duplicate values or multiple entries for a column value for the same value of index, then there is an error using pivot function or method. Now our next topic is pivot underscore table functions. So for data having multiple values for same row and columns combination, pivot table function is used. Okay, so that is the solution of this problem, that if there are multiple values for the same row and column combination, then pivot underscore table function is used. The pivot underscore table function is also a pivoting function which, like pivot, also produces a pivoted table, but it different from the pivot function in the following way. So these are two basic difference. First of all, it does not raise an error for multiple entries of a rows and columns combinations. So we can say that it is an upgraded version of pivot function. And second is, it aggregate the multiple entries present for a row column combination. You need to specify what type of aggregate you want, sum or mean. So in pivot table function, there is an extra parameter value that is used, and that is called the aggregate. And by default, if we don't declare it, then aggregate function which is used is mean, or we can say that average. So average of two values are found when there is a duplication of data values, and you can specify sum and mean according to your choice and according to the requirement of the question. So let us check it. First of all, it is a syntax of this. You can define pandas dot pivot underscore table, and data frame should be declared. After that, values and index, columns, and third is aggregate function, whatever you want. Here there is a spelling mistake. AGG is there, aggregate, AGGFUN. Okay, so AGGFUN is there, means aggregate function. And default is mean. Always remember that default is mean. So where index columns contain the column name for rows, okay, column argument contains the column name for columns, values argument contains the column names for data of the pivoted table, and aggregate function basically define the aggregate values, and if we don't mention it, by default it is mean. Okay, so here there is a small example here. You can easily see that. First of all, two libraries are imported here. Import numpy as np and import pandas as pd. Numpy and pandas, two different libraries here, and np and pd is the alternative name given to these libraries. So whenever we want to use this library in our program, we just write np in place of numpy and pd in place of pandas, and after that put dot operator and then the method of function which belongs to these libraries. So here you can easily see that there is a data frame declared here using a dictionary here. So these are the columns value. Key becomes columns when we want to declare the data frame using a dictionary, and these are the values regarding to that columns. So you can easily see that. Okay, so there are there are 5 different columns, P, Q, R, S, T, and values are given for that. And you can easily see that there are duplicate values, and since we use here pivot underscore table function, so so if there are duplicate values, then it will not show any error in our program. You can easily see that. If just print a df statement, just print that def statement, then this is your actual data frame here. You can easily see that these are the index values, these are the column as I told you, pqrst. In a dictionary, when you just convert it into a data frame, then keys values are converted to the column name, and these are the different values regarding to that columns. Okay, now the important thing is that you can see here the duplication of values here, different duplication of values here. As you can see that r1 range is here, r11 range is here, r11 is here. So two different values are there. r12 is small here, r12 is small here. So again there is a duplication values. Okay, now s values f is also same for that. In fifth or sixth, you can see that b11, b11, these two values are same here. b12, b12, these two values are here, and also the last values 9 and 9 are same here. So different same values are here or different columns here, and when we just use a pivot underscore table function, it will not raise an error. So let us see what happens. So here if you just give table pd underscore pivot underscore table df is the name of the data frame, and then values, okay, and index and columns, these are the given here. Different parameters are used here. So as columns are counted to as values, index are given, two index are there, p and q, you can give more than two index here, and column are r. So column r have only two values, you can easily see that small and large. So small and large are here, large and small are here, and the index value, you can easily see that p and q are the index values. So for p and q, you can easily see that r1 and b1 are the only two values. So b1 and r1 are there. Okay, and you can easily see that here. Okay, now you can easily see here. So values are values regarding to data s means these values 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, now you can easily see that these are the values, and there are two index p and q. You can easily see that value of p are b1 and r1, and q are 1 and 2. So you can easily see that, and these are the values they are related to s here. You can easily see that, and so if you just print this table, that is the output regarding to that table using pivot underscore table function, and you can easily see that there is a no duplication of data here. So if there is also a duplication of data, then it will also print it. It will also print it. So let us take another example. You can easily see that now values are s, index are p and q here, and column are only r. So only one column is there. Okay, and here fill value, and here aggregate function is np.sum. In previous case there is no aggregate function is okay, aggregate function is np.sum is defined here. So we aggregate the different values. Actually if aggregate function is this parameter is defined, then here we can easily see that these are the different values, but actually there are, if different values are there, then it actually works on the basis of aggregate function. It basically takes sum of these two values regarding to that. So it will finally give you a unique data here. So when you see just the answer, you cannot predict that there are duplicate values or not. You can see the values here, and if there are two values found at that point, then it will take aggregate then aggregate function play its role, and whatever the aggregate function defined, according to that value will be calculated, and here sum is there, so sum will be so if two values are found, then these values are added to each other and gives a desired result here. You can easily see that. And if no value is found, then NaN will appear here. This is the second program here. You can easily see that values are S. So these are the S values here. Index P and Q. So P and Q, there are two index here. Regarding to that, there are only two values, B1 and R1, and 1 and 2 here, and only one column is there. So large and small are the name of the columns here. And here you just fill aggregate function np.sum. That is the same as the previous one, but there is another parameter used in this case, and that is fill underscore value. And fill underscore value is basically defined when you don't want to print any n values, means not a number. Then you can use another parameter named fill underscore value, and whatever you define with parameter value fill underscore value, that will be printed in place of nan here. So you can see that here in previous case nan will be there, but in case after the execution of the program, you can easily see that 0 is there. So 0 is replaced 0 basically nan will be replaced by 0 here. So if you want if you don't want to use or print a nan value, then you can use another parameter fill underscore value that basically replace nan by any value that you given with this parameter value, with this parameter. Next there is an example here. In this example you can easily see that df values are s and t, so two values are there, and two different index are there, and argument function aggregate function here is np.mean, and for s you can take here mean, and for t you can take mean, because there are two different values s and t's. So you can define same function for them, and you can define different function for them. But declaration of aggregate function is compulsory for that, because there are duplication of values, and when you find different duplicate values for same location, then you should define aggregate function. So here two different values are there. You can easily see that s and t. For s and t, aggregate function should be defined, and here you can easily see that aggregate function is defined here is np.mean. It means the mean will be calculated for that, and by default it is mean. So if you don't define mean, then it also calculate mean of that values. So this is the third example in which we can easily see that if there are two different values are given, then two different aggregator functions are defined for these. Now we can also calculate multiple type of aggregate for any given value columns, and for if you want to define multiple type of aggregate, then it is also possible. In this case you can easily see that there is a table, there is a data frame, and you can apply here pivot underscore table, and this function is applied on df data frame, and values defined are d and e. So d and e are the values, and index are a and c. You can see here that e and c are the values. For a and c there are two different values, and c there are again two different values, large and small. So there is a combination for a and c here. Different index values are here, and no column values are defined here. So by default that columns that are remaining are not declared, and this are declared as a defined as a column. So d and e are the a b c, b and c are the name of the columns. No column name are defined here actually, so no column name printed actually here. Just define the different values here, okay, and values are d and e. And for d and e, just for d you just calculate mean, and for e you just calculate minimum, maximum and mean. Three different types of calculation here. So minimum, maximum, mean is here, and mean is here. You can easily see that. So in this example we just give, okay, wait a minute, let us explain it again. df is the name of the data frame here. There are two values d and e, So D and E are there, you can easily see that. For D and E, different aggregate functions are there. For D, there is only a mean value, so this is the mean value regarding to the D. And for E, min, max and mean are there, so these are the different values of min, max and mean are there. And there are only two columns and two index are there, A and C, so these are the two columns for A and C are given here, and no columns are declared here, so no column will be mentioned here. And this program tells you that whenever you want to define more than one aggregate function for a single column value, then these can be calculated, and you can easily see that these are calculated here. So this is all about pivot function and pivot table functions. Always remember the difference between these two, and it will ask you examination that what is the difference between pivot and pivot table functions. So first of all, it should be remembered that in pivot table function, no duplication values are allowed within a single row, or in a pivot table function, duplicate values are allowed. And second difference between pivot and pivot table function is that with pivot table function we use aggregate function, and by default if the no aggregate function is defined, then it should be considered as a mean. So that is a basic difference between pivot and pivot table function. And next is the example. Always explain difference between these two using using a suitable example. So this is all about pivot and pivot table function. I hope you understand this concept very well now. So apply this on your computer using Anaconda Python, and this concept will be now then will be very clear to all of you. So thanks for watching this video.